Morning. Sun is shining above the clouds, yeah, but we are safe in the sports hall. I would like to introduce Mr. Wolfgang Polanyi again, and he will enjoy us with a nice session.
Theoretisch, yeah, okay. Okay, so now from my side, very good morning. Hope that everybody survived the heavy discussions of last night following the match between Germany and Slovenia. I'm not going to comment this in any way. First of all, when I talk about this thing with the extra player, my statements here are personal statements based upon my researches and of careful consultations with the three colleagues that I like the most, me, myself and I. And so I want you all to know that this is not an official statement of the European Federation, neither in any way a political statement. This is really very important that you know. Whatever I'm going to tell you is just based upon a couple of matches, careful researches, and this is my personal opinion. Okay? When we talk about this thing with the extra player, first night. Then you will have here, we have to separate a couple of the issues. And this is the way we are going to deal with that issue. First of all, we are going to talk about the play 6-on-6. The second thing is we will talk about this special situation now with the play 7-on-6. And the last is what I call general reservations. As you can see, there are some concerns in terms of the character of the play in total, and from my point of view, the most crucial issue is that we have some existing rules that are contradictory to this new form of an additional rule. Okay, let's have the next one. I will go through all that pretty fast, so it will take us not more than half an hour. We have, in all this, we have pros and cons. The pros in playing 6-on-6 is, as you know, many coaches always are concerned of the time that they are consuming on tactical moves, and that is very difficult to have drills for new tactical moves, and that it takes a lot of time. So of course it's a pro that you can use, when you have the extra player, your regular 6-on-6 moves. This saves time, and it's not necessary to to construct and to train additional moves, additional solutions. The second is, of course, no time, no effort consumption. For the first time in handball, these stupid long passes from sideline to sideline that you can see in almost all of the warm-up of the teams, which regularly are absolutely nonsensical in terms of the matches situation. In some way, those long passes, they make sense. And it makes sense for the goalkeepers to train long distance shots as well. The question is, do they really apply that in the match and in the matches? But basically it makes sense. And the last thing is, for spectators, of course, it's very nice to see the effort with a 25-meter shot on the empty net, or a fast break and things like that. These are the pros when you play 6-on-6. The cons are, and here we have the situation that many years ago I had an article on the fact that from the point of view of psychology, the power play is a disadvantage for the team playing with 6 players. Because when should they score if not in that case? And the defense more likely will, because they just play with 5 players, they will more likely take more risks, and they will try to offer semi-chances to the offense. And at all these things in total, I don't want to go too much in detail, but it's a matter of fact that for the team playing a 6-on-5, again, in the view of psychology, it's a disadvantage. And now you have the chance playing 5-on-6, and on purpose you switch this situation the other way around. The psychological advantage that you would have playing just with 5 players, and in terms of the referees as well, this psychological advantage you eliminate on purpose, and on the other hand you have behind you the risk of the empty net. Do you get this? So playing 5-on-6 means, from the point of view of the psychologist, a psychological advantage for the team playing short-handed. But when you play 6-on-6 now, you give away this advantage, and even more, you take the disadvantage of having an empty net behind you. So, from psychological point of view, it's a clear disadvantage, it's a con. The next thing is that, and we could see this for more than 1 year now, the superiority of a stronger team over a weaker team will increase. And this can be proven by all the situations. You just have to look at the match reports and the observations, the scouting sheets and everything. This is a fact. That means this extra player only makes sense if you're a real strong team. When you are a real strong team, then you play 6-on-6 and you will score, most probably. It doesn't really make sense if you are the weaker team. This is a fact that you can see just following the matches. The negative influence on the character of the play. Well, there have been matches where we had up to 10 or 12 attempts on the empty net. And this raises the question, is this the way of the handball that we want to see in the future? That means that we have 10 or even more tries on the empty net. Just try, try, try. It's embarrassing if a professional player misses the empty net from 20 meters, as you can see. And it is a disadvantage as well for the goalkeepers. And from my point of view, still one thing is valid, that the goalkeepers are still not really prepared for this kind of play. So a lot of teams, when you watch them, they just play their regular game plan, and okay, now they just take away the goalkeeper and they play the regular 6-on-6. From my point of view, this is a mistake, because it's a special situation, and a special situation would call for special solutions. But in most cases, they don't do it. And this is the funny thing, as we have the fourth con, there are some very effective solutions at hand when you play 5-on-6. Can we get the next slide, please? The cons. The regular thing is, when you go, like you have this gyro move for going to a 4-2 position, and then the question raises, how many players, if you lose the ball, are you going to switch? Because in most teams, they will have a defense specialist. But if you take away the goalkeeper, that means that you have to switch 2 players at least. How to do that? And can you observe that they really practice that one? So it's very, very difficult to see. The second thing is, if you do, and many teams do this, they will go for a wing sweep. Now, when you go for a wing sweep, who is going to switch with the goalkeeper? Who is supposed to be the extra player in that case? When you do the regular wing sweep that all the teams do, and you can see this, you give away 1/3 of the width of the pitch, and then it's even easier for the defense to steal away the ball, and you have the empty net behind you. So does this really make sense to play your regular offense plan? This is what I said before. I don't see that the teams are prepared for this specific situation. They just play what they are used to play. But this is not a regular situation. And the last thing is the orthodox gyro that you can see now all the teams play. The line player coming up, switching positions with the playmaker, and in that case the same applies. Who is going to switch with the goalkeeper? Who is going to be the extra player? Many teams just do it with one wing player. But here the same applies. You send off the wing player, which means you give away 1/3 of the pitch. And you work for the defense even, and not for your offense. Does this really make sense? So these are the things, just applying the regular play that you have. Next slide, please. And there are, as I already mentioned, there are some tactical tools available when you can play very, very effectively in the game 5-on-6. If you take the one on the left side, this is the regular move that you will always see. The wings coming in, playing 5-on-6. Okay, this is the opposite way now. We have this player 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We left that one, and we just 5. You move in here, and the wing that started the action will move back to his position, and then we have that situation. And with that situation, we create this one here with a numerical superiority on one side, although we play 5 on 6. You could see this, and I'm really puzzled because this was an invention done by German teams. A lot of German teams played that thing, and they were pretty successful with that. And yeah, and this has almost vanished. The second solution is that you put the line player in one wing position. With that, when I go back in 2006 at the European Championships in Switzerland, Lino Cerva practiced that with the Croatian team. He had Igor Vori always positioned on the left wing and then moving inside, and they were absolutely successful with that. And this is a brilliant solution for the play 5 on 6. So my question is, does it make sense to take the additional risk with the extra player when there are tools available that makes it pretty effective to play 5 on 6? My personal opinion is that this doesn't make sense. Again, my personal opinion. Next slide, please. The next thing is when we start playing 7 on 6. Okay? Pros. We have a power play situation, we have man advantage, and we can clear the floor on one side. We can develop specific plays even. And we can do the back switch with the goalkeeper without loss of space. Because we, in this case, in most situations, one of the backcourt players is going to switch with the goalkeeper. But, on the other hand, what we said about the psychological situation applies in that case as well. The psycho pressure will increase. Because when you play 7 on 6, of course, you are more or less, you are forced to score. Because if you don't score, why then do you play 7 on 6? This is one thing. The play in any case will become more static. That means that for teams that are used to play with a very fluent, effective, moving game, and the main teams, for instance, Flensburg. I think most of you are familiar with that. Flensburg is playing a very fluent game with the players running, they are fast and so on. I don't see any advantage if Flensburg is going to play 7 on 6, because they give away their biggest advantage, the speed of their players. Because simply there is less room for the single players when you have an additional player and the pitch. So, from my point of view, you have to make up your mind very clearly if, when you look at the character of your team, it makes sense to play with 7 players in offense. If you have fast-moving players, if you have a fast-moving playmaker, like for instance the Slovenian teams had, does it make sense to limit the room for this fast-moving playmaker by having an additional player on the pitch? I strictly doubt that. And the empty net risk is always there. And the empty net risk, when you talk with players, they are very much aware of that situation. And they will, the decision making and all those things that the players in offense are in with, they become more and more difficult. So I do not really see that it makes sense to put additional pressure on my players. When in many situations we always claim that there is so much pressure on them. And now I put even more. I don't see a real sense in that. Next one, please. So the pros, and this is a funny thing. This is taken from the main under 20, and this is the German team. Obviously, the German team in this main under 20 was very, very well prepared for this play with 7 against 6, and they had fantastic solutions for that. So when you look at that, the point is that they start the move on the left side. They start the move, and what they are going to do is that with this empty crossing, the left back who now in the following of the move doesn't have a real important position. This one will continue to go for the switch with the goalkeeper. So they are going to have the situation that they will be still like this. And they have the full court available. So this is a thing that they did very well. The second solution, the same thing applies here. Then here the center back will go for the switch. That means that although the wing is running a long way, the left-hander on this side has got a lot of solutions available to play with the left back. So these are two solutions that they obviously were very well rehearsed, and they were very, very successful with playing that thing. But, and now there's the huge but. Although they were very successful, and obviously they had this very well rehearsed, in the finals they gave away the match because of playing 7 on 6. They had in 4 consecutive offense plays, 4 times they lost the ball, and 3 times they got an empty net make, and the game was decided. It switched from 1 down to 3 down, and they never came back again in this final match. Okay, next thing please. The cons. This is taken from the same thing. This is the Croatian team. As you can see, it's the regular solution of Croatian teams when they are in a power play situation. They will always do a pretty risky pass. In that case, it was even a camper, or they do the long pass, diagonal pass to the wing. And the problem with that is that at the same time, the other wing was going to switch with the goalkeeper. So they gave away, as I already said, a lot of space in the pitch. And that led, in the end, to the situation that this play was very, very ineffective. In almost all the 7 on 6 situations, they were not successful in scoring. And in half of the 7 on 6 situations, they got a make by the opponents, either empty net or a fast break with the goalkeeper not being able to be in the goal fast enough. So this is one thing. The second solution, then, again, Croatian team, they tried very hard to limit the risk of the long distance passes and the diagonal pass or the camper solution. And now, as you can see it here, the center of the pitch in that case was really packed. And the same applies here again. Then they had the center packed with a lot of players here, and one wing moved away. So you will have here a full-scale concentration of the players in a very narrow space. And that again was a real problem for the team. And the same applies again. It was not successful. You take high risk, and the balance between the risk you take, the psychological pressure you put on your team, and the outcome, this balance simply does not fit. And this is what I had to say to that. Okay, next one please, because we're quite good in time. Now we have what I call the general reservations. A high number, pretty high number, in some situations of the matches on long distance shots. I recall a match, Peter Poreč reminded me on that. I think it was a World Championship qualification match between Hungary and Latvia, I think. Hungarian team scored 12 empty net goals in one match. So is this the way we really try to develop handball in the future? The second thing is, as I already mentioned, extreme pressure on the offense team. Why should I, as a coach, take additional pressure? Third thing, what about the application in the young ages? Because if you change a rule, this is a general change, and that means, do we really want to see the play 7-on-6 or the extra player when they play under 13 or under 14? And what about the referees? In lower classes and in young age categories, in most cases you just have one referee and not the two. It's no problem to control all these things with the switch and even the two-player switch when you are in the championship. Because you have two additional guys sitting at the table, you have two referees, so these are at least 4 guys to watch this. If you are a referee in a youth game, you're just alone. Because in most cases, you cannot really rely on the table guys. They are secretaries. But they don't watch wrong substitutions and things like that. So, what? And there is another issue, especially in terms of young age categories. Some of you might know that many years ago my dissertation ran on psychological structures in teams. And at that time I found out that the position of the goalkeepers was very strange. The goalkeepers were very well accepted in terms of their performance, but in terms of the psychological embedding in the teams, they had a very weak position. Now this improved, because my dissertation now is back more than 30 years. This improved a lot now. The psychological situation of the goalkeepers is much better. And you can watch it by doing some sociometry. But now, if you go to young age categories, there might be the situation, the psychological situation. Okay, when we are in defense and the ball is with the opponent, then it's very dangerous. So you might join us as a goalkeeper. Helmut, come in and play in the goal, because this is a dangerous situation. But as soon as we are in possession of the ball and we play the real handball, then you move out, because there's no way for you, you don't have any objective now. This is a psychological situation that might occur, especially in young teams. The young age category, and obviously nobody ever had taken this into account. And the last thing that I want to refer to is the problem with already existing rules. We have this funny rule that if the goalkeeper is outside the goal area and touches an offense player, it's a direct red card, right? So for me as a coach, it would be a very nice solution. As soon as the opponent are ready to shoot at my goal, I will have the wing player on the respective side moving in front of the substitution area of the opponent's team, and they're just waiting to be run over by the switching goalkeeper. And then me as a coach, I would claim for a red card. I don't say that this is a regular solution and you should do this all the time, but it's inside the rules. So what? And for me, two more issues are very important. Those are the two things that I really, I'm afraid the most of, and therefore I'm opposing this extra player rule. The meaning of the 2-minute suspension. As you can see, you have a suspension. Okay, you get a make. Then you play with the extra player and you try to run down the clock as far as you can do. And in most cases, you just have to watch. They will be able to take 1 minute away from the clock in playing 6-on-6. That means, and this is only logical, step by step, that means that in the future we have to change the rules of suspension. Not 2 minutes, but at least 3. Is this the thing that we want to have in the future? Obviously not. So, in this case, I think we have to think again. And the next thing is, you rather take a penalty shot than an empty net risk. Because if you have a very good goalkeeper, okay, you will take the risk of a penalty. And even as you could see yesterday, even guys like Uwe Gensheimer, they are not at 100% from the line. But on the empty net, the risk is much higher. So I'm very much afraid that when we stay with this rule, handball might, let's put it in another way. The danger might occur that handball will go back from the physical play, from the foul play, to that kind of play that existed when I was a player by myself. And this was not a nice kind of handball. It was more or less, in many situations, it was wrestling with the ball. And with very stupid and ugly fouls. Because, as I already said, the 2-minute suspension, piece of cake. Half of that time we take away anyway. Because we have the extra player, we play 6-on-6 in offense. So what? And there is a real danger that some teams might raise this as a philosophy even. I just refer, do you remember the German team when they called themselves the bad boys? Do we really want to have a development into that direction? So this is why I'm convinced that this extra player rule should be thought over once again, and it has to be tested very carefully. Because obviously there was not thorough testing and carefully tries and researches of the effects of that rule. It was just an idea. But an idea has to be tested. And in scientific researches, when you have an idea, you have a hypothesis. And then you try very hard to prove it. Or to prove that it's wrong. But to take this idea and implement it as a strict rule for all the handball all over the world, I'm strictly objecting that thing. So this would be my my final statement. Think again about this rule after a very close testing phase. Thank you very much for your attention.